Hello everyone, this time we're going to talk about the polar vortex because in the last materials about 3-4 days ago I mentioned that it's strengthening and you can really see that strengthening. Take a look at the wind speeds at an altitude of 10 hectopascals. How does the situation look with the western wind speeds? We need to start here first. Let's take a look. We have the third one here at the moment, so we're somewhere here. This is the moment we're in. Here's the line. So what do we see here? For the polar vortex, the higher the wind, the faster the wind. At 10 hectopascals, the better. It's assumed that the best is when it's above 50 meters per second, although 40 meters per second is also pretty okay. 40, 45, but 50 is really sweet spot. So this situation might not have reached 50, but we saw that at the beginning of December we had 45, 46 up to 47, 35, 46 to 47 meters per second, and after a slight decrease that is happening at this moment, then we will probably have another increase to these 45, 46 meters per second. But after the 10th, we see a drop in wind speed, so something is starting to happen here, something in these forecasts for the future. By mid-December, things are starting to change, and it's worth taking a look at what that might be. And this time we'll start primarily with checking how the polar vortex looks at the moment. Right now it doesn't look bad, it looks really good. However, it's worth noting that we have a certain area here. This is probably an area of high pressure. Here we have, of course, the polar vortex, which is a low-pressure system, and this high pressure is slightly pushing down on the vortex, trying to destabilize it a bit. But for now, it doesn't look bad at all. But when we look at the later dates, especially towards the end of the calculations, so we're talking about the 12th, 14th, 15th, just take a look at what's starting to happen. We have the tilt of this vortex, but also at lower altitudes. It's also visible here. It's only visible from the back. We can't see it from this side. It's kind of surrounded. Here we definitely have a stronger push of this vortex more towards the Atlantic Ocean. Here we have the Atlantic, here we have PL, here we have Poland in this spot, and of course we have the USA. If anyone isn't in the loop, I'm saying that it's USA. Borat, man, that just came to my mind. Sorry. And look, this is where things start to happen. We can see that something is starting to have a strong impact on this vortex, especially in the latest calculations of the GFS model. It's getting more and more tilted. So we need to pay attention to that. What could it look like in the model? It's worth checking the latest calculations. At the top we have date, we have the model, so we can check it ourselves. This will definitely make it easier for everyone here. So I invite all of you to check it out together. They checked. This is the situation as of yesterday, today, and I'll mark in black what's happening here. We have a low here marked with the letter L from the United States, but of course we're talking about N because it's a low, so this is a low. Here we have the lowest temperatures at an altitude of 10 hectopascals, and in this area the temperatures are very low, around -60, -70, -80 degrees. So here we have the polar vortex. Here, on the other hand, we have an area of high pressure, so this is a high in English, and in our terms it's a ridge. And here we have a definitely higher temperature at around -20, -30 degrees Celsius. And generally, it's often the case that when the temperature rises in this area, it can destabilize that high. Let's see how this will look in the coming days now that we have this information sorted out. Let's take a look. We can see that the situation with the polar vortex on the 6th, 7th, and 8th isn't changing much. He said that on the 8th, the temperature will drop even further to -85 degrees Celsius, but according to the latest calculations, troubling things will start to happen. After the 12th, since not only will the low-pressure system shift more towards Kamchatka and the islands around Alaska, but this area with high temperatures will start to push in more and more towards that low-pressure system, meaning towards that vortex that's located here. Just a reminder, Poland is right here. I mark. And what we have here next, I'll remove this, but I'll write here that this is Poland to make it easier. In the next hours, around 12, 13, you'll see how this vortex will be pushed more towards Greenland. The lowest temperatures at these altitudes of 10 hectares will be around Greenland. And here, we have an extremely, really big topic indeed, around 18 to 19, temperatures at minus 17 degrees Celsius. And this zone pushing very strongly towards the North Pole. We'll see how this will look, but that would suggest a destabilization of the vortex, which in turn would imply that maybe not so much for Christmas, but for New Year's Eve, it could be a bit cooler. I don't want to talk more about this right now in that regard, because it's really a long-term forecast, and I don't like doing that, but still it's worth paying attention to. Let's take a look at how the temperature anomaly is shaping up, and look how beautiful this looks. Negative anomaly in the area, just like the one I drew for you earlier, which is somewhere around here. It's okay, but it's worth paying attention to what will happen later, right after that, around 14, 15. The negative anomaly, meaning those very low temperatures, will be pushed more towards Greenland, the United States, and Canada, but we will see a very strong positive anomaly right here over Siberia, which will not be favorable for the polar vortex. And it's definitely worth keeping an eye on that. It's also worth taking a look at the winds at an altitude of 10 hectopascals, and we can see that these westerly winds will be very strong. And in that ring, it's mainly these cold air masses that keep the cool air, the cold air, at those higher altitudes. And we can see that the polar vortex is doing quite okay, but this wind, this push of the wind. But look at how the situation is starting to develop, already heavily over this influx. Over Alaska, over Kamchatka, that influx. Over Alaska, over Kamchatka, it's really starting to hit there, even up to 100, 105 meters per second. That wind is separating the high pressure from the low pressure. And what's really important is that you can see a certain destabilization of the polar vortex, but those are very long-term calculations. These calculations can change, so I'll move on to the temperatures. To the temperatures at an altitude of 850 hectopascals, and this time I'll highlight Poland for you again. I'll highlight it for you this way. Oh, here is Poland. Did someone want the outlines? Well, now it has outlines. So here are the outlines, and here is Poland. If anyone was asking, and we're off. In the coming days, we can see primarily two areas where this cold air is escaping from. The first is, of course, the United States and Canada. Here, of course, the influx of those cold air masses can be really significant. They might have a tornado outbreak again in the southern United States because that's where the two air masses are meeting. Another influx of these cold air masses is primarily from Siberia and Kamchatka, so those are the two areas. As for Europe, well, it won't be that bad for us, of course. Of course, we'll have a situation where the lows will be pulling in both cold and warm air at different times. However, in the coming days, despite the dominance of slightly cooler air masses at an altitude of 850 hectopascals, we don't see a very strong influx of those cold air masses like we do over Canada or Siberia, where the temperatures can really, really drop. They can really drop a lot here, so we have some pretty big temperature differences. What's really important, and what catches my attention, is this cold snap that will reach all the way to North Africa right around the 8th, 9th, 10th. They will also feel a touch of winter there. My dear friends, I invite you to subscribe to our channel, of course. This will help us in its development. And I also invite you to watch more of our content. Overall, what's really important for our channel is to watch these videos in full, or to watch them for as long as possible, so I see in the statistics that you're watching them for a long time. Thank you very much for that. So yeah,